Happy, happy Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. Happy, happy Halloween, Silver Shamrock.
Hi, this is Stephanie Myers.
And I'm Stephanie Pena.
Happy, happy Halloween, Silver Shamrock.
And we're talking tunes
On Play That Rock and Roll.
This is not a test, this is Play That Rock and Roll. Spooktacular edition. Ooh. Yes, today is our first ever Halloween special, in which we will be building an awesome playlist full of Halloween and horror-themed songs. But it's not just me. I reached out to some other music podcasters to help me put this playlist together. Today, I will be joined by Stephanie Pena and Stephanie Myers from the Stephanie and Stephanie Talk Tunes podcast. Stephanie and Stephanie Talk Tunes was launched in April of 2021, and on each episode, they deep dive on various songs and also share personal anecdotes about the artists they're discussing. Building the perfect playlist is a big part of a great Halloween party. So I thought it would be a lot of fun to kick off the Halloween season by sharing some of my favorite Halloween-themed songs, along with some fellow podcasters who are also enthusiastic about this time of year, and they did not disappoint. So over the next hour, each of us will share 5 of our favorite horror-themed tracks, and hopefully that can serve as the basis for your own Halloween party playlist. If you want to learn more about Stephanie and Stephanie Talk Tunes, you can find them on social media at Stephanie's Talk Tunes on Facebook, Instagram, and even TikTok. They're also on Twitter at Stephanie's Talk, and of course they have their own website, stephaniestalktunes.com. Like my good friend Paul over at the Vintage Rock Pod, Stephanie and Stephanie Talk Tunes is on the Pantheon Podcast Network, and they are also on the podcast app Good Pods as well, doing very good on that app. So if you use Good Pods, check them out over there. And if you don't worry, they are on every podcast platform out there. So wherever you get your podcasts, you can get theirs. You can also get this one, but I think you do that already. And if you're not familiar with any of the songs we discussed today, don't worry. Just check the description box below. You will find a playlist that features every song we discussed. Now, don't cheat. Don't go there now. Listen why we made our selections, and then check out the playlist. And if you're building your playlist on YouTube, well, hey, I've got it started for you already. So be sure to check that out after you give this a listen. Now, this playlist is just a starter kit. I know we've missed all kinds of Halloween classics, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't tell me about them. If there's some big ones you think we missed, feel free to post them in the comments below. Let us know what you're listening to on Halloween. Hell, I might steal a couple of ideas for my own Halloween party. So let's get the conversation going. What are the best songs to listen to in the Halloween season? What you're about to listen to in this next hour is at least the start of our favorites. So without further ado, here's our countdown of our favorite songs for a Halloween party playlist, which I recorded with the hosts of Stephanie and Stephanie Talk Tunes, Stephanie Pena and Stephanie Myers. Myers, was it you that I was tweeting back and forth with the Daryl Hall clip today?
Yes. This guy, I swear, I don't know if I love to hate him or hate to love him, but he's just so consistently pretentious. He's just so consistently pretentious and like super obsessed with himself.
Y'all got to give me some backstory. What happened?
I brought up everybody's favorite guy, a guy that if you mention at a party, everyone will be happy. Bill Maher, right?
Okay. Okay.
Guy that pisses nobody off.
Never.
Well, he had Daryl Hall on his podcast, and Daryl Hall's doing a show near me in a couple of weeks, and I'm mulling over if I want to go. So I was watching the interview.
Gotcha.
and Bill says to him, "You have a partner, musical partner." Speaking of John Oates, and immediately Daryl Hall tenses up, and he's just like, "I don't have a partner. I have a business partner, but I don't have a partner."
I mean, you have a partner, so it's a little different than.
I don't have a partner.
You're
You
not.
think John Oates is my partner?
You still tour together, don't you?
Yeah, but he's not my partner.
Well,
He's my business partner. He's
oh,
not
geez, well, look what I've stumbled into here.
he's not my creative partner.
Okay, I'm not trying to. I was just saying.
And Daryl Hall goes so far as to crack open a bottle of booze and pour himself a drink.
Holy
He just gets on a tear about how they're not partners.
I know that you guys still tour and put out records, so to me, that's a partner. I mean, it's like.
We don't put out records.
When was the last record you put out with him?
And I think it was 10 years ago.
To me, that's fairly recent. It's 21st century.
John and I are brothers, right? But we are not creative brothers. We are business partners. We did a lot of stuff. We've always been very separate, and it's a really important thing for me.
Well, but you certainly weren't separate on the records, and were you separate creating them? No.
We were separate on the records too.
It's bizarre. And I didn't even know about that dynamic, but until I heard your episode about him. And when you guys talked about that at the end of the show about Daryl having this attitude. And it was just like, I've seen a lot of artists in interviews get, pissed off, but Daryl Hall is seething for those few seconds there, which is very funny to me.
And John Oates, like, God bless him, he just must be like, okay, yeah, I'm going to cry all the way to the bank as you do this. But the whole Hall Notes is 80-20 and I'm 80%. Like, good God.
Does John Oates get as angry in interviews if you mention this stuff to him?
No, everything rolls off his back because he's like supposed to be pretty down to earth from what I hear anyway. And he's just like, okay, cool. I got my solo, got my stuff, whatever. And Daryl's like, oh, it's just like, grow up.
That's wild. And it would be different too if it was like the Daryl Hall band. I mean, but it's Hall and Oates. Like, how in the hell do you get off? Just like dissing your partner. I mean, that's like saying I don't have Stephanie. It's not a Myers and Pena production.
No, that's why I was like, well, we have a 50-50 podcast.
Yeah.
Percentage.
That's wild.
I hope that both of you in the future are successful and wealthy enough that you can afford to go on those diva tantrums that Daryl Hall does, if you are so inclined.
Oh my gosh, that is
Stephanie. No, there's one step.
Yeah, there's
only one.
Oh, sorry. All right. Well, we got some great music to talk about today, but before we get to our lists, Myers, I would like to start with you. Let's introduce the reason why I wanted to have both of you on this show, your podcast. Myers, could you tell us a little bit about what your podcast, Stephanie and Stephanie Talk Tunes, is all about?
Yeah, we share the music and the memories that have shaped our lives and really highlight these musical memories from our 20-year friendship. So we've realized that fans of storytelling and music nerds are the ones that tend to really like us.
Hell yeah, I'm in that club. Pena, can you tell us how this show got started? What made you two decide to do this, and give us the backstory of how it came to be?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Stephanie just, she was she emailed me for some reason, and it was nothing podcast related, not even an idea, but it was just like the last line of her email, like it'd be so great if we just did a podcast, and she was joking about it completely.
It was
joking.
A birthday text, Pena.
Oh, it was a birthday text. Okay, my bad. I thought it was an email. Okay, my bad. I think it was an email. Anyway, here we go. We're gonna start fighting like Hall and Oates. But no. But regardless, she reached out to me, and Myers had mentioned like, hey, we have so many stories around music and so many memories. We could go on forever. And I was like, hey, you know what? That's not a bad idea. And at the time that she mentioned this, for me personally, I needed something creative. And I was like, hey, you know what? This is great. And what a better way to go down memory lane, because we just tend to have the most ridiculous stories when it comes to music and our friendship. And I'm like, that's very unique. So yeah, that's how it came about. It was literally a joke to Myers. And I'm like, no.
Was kind of a joke.
And
that's excellent. And you two have been doing this show for well over a year now, correct?
Yeah, about a year and a half. Yeah.
Wow. Very good. Very good. Okay. So let's get down to business. This is why we're here today. We're in the Halloween season, and this is the time of year when people start putting together their Halloween playlists. And I think, some people take the easy way out and just put on whatever Spotify has. Screw that. I'm all about building playlists. I'm all about taking 8 hours of a day to put a full playlist together. And that might seem daunting to some people, but let's give them a tool to get started with. Let's give them some great suggestions that will make for a great Halloween party. So we each have 5 songs. One has 6. And we're going to build a 15-song starter kit for anyone listening to put together a great Halloween party playlist. So, Pena, we're going to start with you. You have 2 number 5 picks. What were the songs? Let's do them one at a time. What were the 2 songs that hit your number 5 spot?
Yeah, absolutely. So the 2 5s that I had are Misfits, Halloween, and then I also have Somebody's Watching Me, Rockwell. And the reason why I have 2 is because Stephanie and I actually went into great detail in season 1 on Misfits Halloween. I think as any rock, rock music lover, they've heard it before. And that song, I mean, it is Halloween, right? It's the name. And so I had to add that. But of course, just for the sake of having more to the list, and honestly, I could easily put a playlist together real quick for folks. Halloween's my favorite holiday. But yeah, but both of these jams, Somebody's Watching Me, I mean, that's just creepy. So it's like, I mean, it's all in the name. And, Rockwell does a really good job. And if those haven't seen the video, it's pretty funny because he's like looking in the mirror and there's like, oh, somebody's watching me. It's real cheesy. It's good stuff. Yeah, so there's definitely that's a jam that I've always listened to. I grew up with a lot of hip hop, grew a lot with R&B. That's kind of where I started, and then hair metal, because of course. Yeah, so there are my 2 5s.
The synth solo on Somebody's Watching Me, that sounds almost like a spooky church organ. That is really underrated. That's one of those songs that, do you think it's unfortunate or just the reality of it that Michael Jackson totally overshadows that song? And even though he's not in the video and you won't find him on any credits, any casual fan is going to associate that song with Michael Jackson. Is that because Rockwell doesn't deliver enough on his own, or because Michael is just such a gigantic presence that he's going to overshadow anybody, no matter who it is?
I'd go with the latter because it's just who he is. I mean, and my gosh, and of course, because Michael being a part of the industry since a child. And of course, Thriller, when that came out, for folks that, don't know the backstory of Thriller, that was a production. That was like a Hollywood production for the video. And just, at that time, and obviously Thriller was his biggest. But yeah, so this is definitely easily to overshadow Rockwell. But Rockwell, he should not be overlooked because he's got some great energy. He's got a wonderful voice. And I mean, quite honestly, the shorter song, the better. Thriller can get a little bit too much. It's like, come on, man, we get it. We're scared. Vincent Price is around. We're all doing the funky dance. Like San Antonio's like to say yeah already, and that means enough already. Like, we get it. Totally yeah already. So yeah, always gonna vouch more for the Rockwell.
Very good. Now, as far as the other one goes with the Misfits, that's a great punk band. They do a lot of horror themed songs, right? You think they're in the running for quintessential Halloween season band?
Yeah, probably. Like, everything about the Misfits is Halloween. I'm like, this is kind of hard because I mean, you have skulls. You have, I mean, that it's what they do. I mean, it's horror punk. Excuse me. That's they created this genre. So, yeah. Misfits they're just spooky. I mean, and even when Danzig went off to his own and did his own thing, he kept that really dark image. And I mean, my gosh, I mean, you listen to my favorite album from Danzig is Lucifer. So, I mean, but yeah, I think it's really hard for folks not to think of the Misfits and not automatically, you know, at least acknowledge the fact of Halloween and how they're just a creepy band.
Oh, for sure. Now, do they tour anymore, or is it just Danzig?
Yeah, no, they're actually touring right now.
Oh, okay.
The original lineup, they actually just played Riot Fest in Chicago.
Oh,
yeah.
very
So
cool. I take it you've seen them before.
yes, I have. I haven't seen the original lineup, but I want to catch them in Dallas because they'll be, and I believe it's on the 30th, October 30th. They're going to be playing out in Dallas, so it's not too far of a drive for me. Stephanie and I actually saw the Misfits together in Times Square back in 2008, and we have we talk about that incident in season 1, episode 14 of our show. So yeah, so Steph and I have some good memories around Misfits in general.
It was a good one.
Oh, very good, very good. Okay, very good. I'll move on now to my number 5 pick. My number 5 was Devil Inside by In Excess.
Woo.
In Excess is one of my absolute favorite bands. I always feel that they don't get the proper, they haven't had the great career revival resurgence that I think a lot of other 80s bands have had.
Sure.
Like I've always felt that Michael Hutchence and the band deserve a big Bohemian Rhapsody style Hollywood biopic. You know, I know there was one in Australia, but I one that's in theaters here. I think they're a great band. Devil Inside was one of their first big hits here in the States. And, you know, it's got that great bump, bump, bum, 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 you know, that's a great riff for a party. It's danceable if you want it to be, or if you just kind of want it playing in the background. It's a great music video directed by this guy, Joel Schumacher.
Joel Schumacher, yeah.
He met them because they're on this soundtrack. And then for those listening on YouTube, here's a teaser. None of the songs from the Lost Boys soundtrack appear on any of our lists. But for that, send your hate mail to me. Leave them alone. Just blame me for it. So the closest we'll get to the Lost Boys today is probably Devil Inside. And yeah, that's just one that moves me. You know, that's just a great jam, and I think a good starting point for building a Halloween playlist.
Yeah, it's got a lot of energy. It's fun. I mean, and that's what Halloween is about, right? So, I mean, you don't have to get all dark with it. Just have fun. And I think the Devil Inside definitely hits that for sure.
And plus one on the Michael Hutchence, who is amazing and really hopefully gets his full pop culture due, because him within In Excess were incredible.
Well, yeah, well said. I saw they did a documentary about him just a couple of years ago. I think it was called Mystify. And I saw it in theaters, and it was just really well done. And it just made me miss this music because, you know, the sad thing is like the band doesn't even tour anymore. You know, they had that weird reality TV show come back in the mid 2000s. And they were one of the first bands I ever saw in concert. I caught them on the tour after that reality show, and they just never came back, you know, to my neck of the woods. And they didn't seem to have a lot of real high profile shows in their late era run. And I guess that new singer never actually clicked with them, didn't totally work out. But it's just too bad, because I think In Excess is a great band.
Yeah.
So that's where we're going to start there. So Myers, what's your number 5?
So my number 5 is Spooky by Classics 4, which I think is just a little perfect ditty for Halloween. It's interesting with Classics 4. They were told as a band, it's like, oh, you're kind of softer than the prevailing sound of the time, but they wore that as a badge of honor and just said, okay, well, we're going to do our thing. And you'll hear this song year round, right? Halloween or no. Many of those band members went to create the Atlanta Rhythm section, which was a great band in its own right. But yes, I believe this song should really be played at top volume Halloween and year round. When I DJ'd in Brooklyn for a little bit, Halloween night, I would always put this on my playlist. It just felt like it needed a little place of honor.
I had never heard this one before, and looking this one up was a real treat, because that is a total lost gem from the 60s, and it captures that like almost psychedelic kind of 60s vibe that is just, that's what makes that era so great. And there's not a lot of video of them, but they're front man has kind of got I'm not saying this to be mean, but he's got kind of a ghoulish mannerism to him that sort of makes the video work. That is a great obscure cut. So I'm glad you introduced that one to me. The only thing I would say, not a great name for a band. I thought you had sent me something like a Classics 4 was like some sort of like off-brand compilation CD.
And they were originally known as Classics. I don't like the addition of any Roman numerals in any kind of band name, so I kind of wish they would not have done that. But they didn't consult me. It was the 60s, so I wasn't around. So.
Yeah. To their detriment. So let's move on to our number 4 picks, and I believe we're staying in the 60s for your number 4 pick, right, Pena?
Yeah, so let's go ahead and visit Monster Mash. I know everybody's heard Monster Mash by Bobby Pickett. Definitely one of my favorites. Just growing up, I remember every station, didn't matter what genre it was, played this song during October. And oh boy, just the beginning, hearing the coffin creak and the bubbling and all that good stuff, all those sound effects. It just touched my soul in a very nice way. As far as everyone's heard this song, but I'm pretty sure folks probably don't do any, research on how it came about. And I learned some good facts today, that the song was inspired by the dance craze at the time, the mashed potato. Yeah.
Please demonstrate this dance for us.
I mean, I'm just gonna mash the air. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. Is that how it works? I've never did it. I mean, yeah, but is that what it is?
I think that's the Macarena.
You're starting to Macarena, but yeah. So this is what it was inspired, off of. It actually came out in August of '62. And so it was perfect timing, right? So, kind of the transition of the season. And so, yeah, it made a big hit in its, release year. And of course, we're still listening to it today. So, yeah, but I think now when I hear it, I'm going to have to do the mashed potato because that's where it originated from. I mean, let's bring it back for sure.
That's a true golden oldie. And it's like songs like those run the risk of being overplayed so much that people take them for granted and kind of lose their appreciation for it. And when that runs the risk of something like that, I always have to remind, people to like listen with fresh ears. And that's why Monster Mash is good, that it only comes around Halloween, because you get that break. And if you really like sit and listen to it, it's just like, wow, you know what? No, this is a gem. This is a real treat. And it pairs really well with Meyer's pick. Spooky. That's a 1 and 2 great punch right there. So excellent. For my pick, number 4, we're going to stay in the 60s again, although I'm moving us forward to the late 60s. My number 4 pick is Midnight Rambler from the Rolling Stones. Midnight Rambler is the lyrics were inspired by the real life Boston Strangler serial killer. So any fans of true crime, I'm not really into that kind of thing, but I'm sure some people, find that stuff fun. I'm a fan of that song because I've seen the Rolling Stones in concert twice, and ever since they released the song back in the 60s, that's been a highlight of their live shows, even though it's not a radio single, and I dig songs like that. It's usually like over 10 minutes long. It's like a bluesy number with a lot of harmonica, and it's just like the centerpiece of almost every one of their shows. And I really enjoyed when I've seen them play that. And it's got this great thing where it starts slow and traditionally bluesy and then starts to speed up, and it kind of gets a little frantic. And I think that captures sort of a horror Halloween vibe really well. And the Don't Do That breakdown at the end of the song is just one of my favorite moments from the Stones. So that's definitely a a Rolling Stones highlight for me. So have either of you seen the Rolling Stones?
I have. And I was also going to commend you on this choice. I'd say Let It Bleed is probably one of my favorite Stones albums. And it's just exceptional. And I really like how we're all interpreting Halloween in different ways too. And I probably would have stolen your pick if I'd thought of this one, Joe. So props. So
Good. I'm glad to steal one from you, because you definitely stole one from me. And go ahead with your number 4.
Yeah, I'm going to continue and go back to the dance craze theme. Go with Werewolves of London by Warren Zevon, which has it's a fun song, right? But it also has kind of a fun history. So the song began as a joke from Phil Everly of the Everly Brothers. And he said to Warren, hey, this is, I see this film, Werewolf of London. It's a good title for a song and dance craze. And he was joking, but they played with the idea. And Zevon and his co-writers wrote the song in 15 minutes, and it became this amazing classic. And it makes me really happy every time I hear it. Warren is an incredible lyricist and writer, and Jackson Browne ultimately produced it. It was kind of fun to hear his take on it. It was after Warren passed in 2003, and he said he interpreted the song as describing what he said was an upper class English womanizer. He said it's about a really well-dressed ladies' man, a werewolf preying on little old ladies. In a way, it's Victorian nightmare, the gigolo thing. Who can beat that? Who can beat that?
A gigolo thing?
Yeah. Who can beat this? Just incredible. So I keep thinking, like, what was it like to hear this for the first time on the radio in the 70s, right? It's such an out of left field thing. It's a great Halloween karaoke song, but yeah, it definitely makes my list. R.I.P. Warren.
Yeah,
Excellent.
that would have been my number 1 pick. That's one of my favorite songs. That is a great sing-along. I definitely feel Warren is somebody who should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Totally.
You know, everybody's got their lists of who should be, you know, on that list, and Warren is high at the top of my list. Have you listened to any of those records he did, you know, right before he passed, right at the end?
I did. I like Keep Me in Your Heart.
Yeah.
I think is my favorite out of those. But yeah, he was just, I mean, working to the end, and I think just had something to share, right? And
Yeah.
just like had it on his heart to share. But yeah, he was such an exceptional talent.
Yeah. What is it? Enjoy Every Sandwich? Was that
Enjoy
his
Every
quote?
Sandwich.
Yeah.
And everybody's
there's-
taking that quote because it's just so good.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I listened to his late era stuff, and that it's hard not to cry if you're listening to it. I mean,
Yeah,
he does a cover of Back in the High Life by Steve Winwood that
I
like
remember that. Yeah.
will reduce you to tears. So absolutely. Giving Warren Zevon a shout out should be mandatory for all podcasts. I'll just say
Absolutely.
that.
100%.
All right, let's move on to round 3 here. Benya, what is your number 3 pick?
I am going to go with Ministry's infamous Every Day is Halloween. Now, many folks may be like, wait, Ministry? What, they did New Wave? Yeah, that's why it's one of my favorites, because Ministry, I'm a metalhead. I absolutely love metal. I'm metal punk, gangster rap. That's all me. And yeah, so as growing up and, you know, just loving the spooky stuff and getting into different genres and learning more. I mean, I was introduced to Ministry as a metal band, and I'm like, oh snap, you know, they're all hardcore. And then who knew that Uncle Al had this kind of soft side to him, and you know, has so much rhythm. And I love the fact that he you know, him and the band created this one, because it's kind of like my mantra. Straight up, it is kind of like my mantra, because every day is Halloween in my life. So I like things dark, but I like it fun. And when this song comes on, best move away, because I'm gonna break it down on the dance floor. It is, I think it's one of those songs that you hear, and no, it's like timeless. No matter, you know, if you're young and now I'm older, it gives me, it's super cool, and it just gives me a lot of energy, and I'm ready to party until November 1st. So yeah.
That was a band. I've heard this song before, but I didn't recognize it right away when you sent it over to me. So I had to look it up and refresh my memory. Great song, great song. I wish I was more familiar with that band. Is that a band that still tours today? Are they still around?
Oh yeah, Ministry is still touring. They have a new album out. Uncle Al is Al Jurgensen. He's the front man.
Okay.
They hit San Antonio not too long ago, but yeah, definitely check them out. Make sure you wear your earplugs, because let me tell you, I have been to a Ministry show and they have blown out my ear, legit.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So they're not going to play Every Day is Halloween, just so you know. They're not going back there. So, but yeah, no, they're great. They're 100%.
So they're like a real heavy band.
Oh yeah. So
Okay.
for folks that don't know, much about them, their metal music is definitely heavy, but it has groove to it as well. It's kind of has this industrial kick to it. So like
Wow.
9 Inch Nails. So it's a
Yeah.
it's a smorgasbord of amazing. And so I mean, Ministry is awesome. And if you keep going back to the early days or new wave stuff, it's crazy, the transformation that happened with that band, for sure.
Okay, so they started a little bit more new wave, because when I first heard this, I was just like, oh, this is like The Cure or Depeche Mode. Like I love that gothy kind of new wave, goth rock, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
So it's cool that they evolved. They evolved from those new wave roots, and they became like a hardcore metal band.
Yeah, I mean, and it all makes sense though. I mean, because I love my new wave as well. So
Yeah.
I mean, it just it was phenomenal. They're just really fun. If I have to choose between the two sounds, I'm just going to go to the metal side, just because that's that's how I first introduced to them. But yeah, this song is amazing. It definitely gets me in a good mood all the time. And like I said, it's kind of like my mantra. And so growing up, I mean, it's like, they're like, why are you wearing black every day? Why is, what's wrong with you? Because, we couldn't just be ourselves, right? There always had to be a problem. And I'm like, well, because every day's Halloween. I just want to be whoever I want to be. And today,
Yeah.
that's what it's for. So anyway, sorry, I'm going on a tangent, but absolutely love this jam.
No, that's very good. That's another one where it's just like, just by putting this together, I'm glad I'm reacquainted with that track, and I'm definitely going to be listening to definitely some of their earlier stuff and kind of see where they go from there, because I dig that sound. Okay, my number 3 pick is a little more pop friendly, maybe. "Feed My Frankenstein" by Alice Cooper.
Yeah.
Although I learned this, not originally by Alice Cooper, originally recorded by a band called Zodiac Mind Warp and the Love Reaction.
Okay.
So, which is weird, because "Feed My Frankenstein" is like a perfect song for Alice Cooper. I'm kind of floored that he didn't write it,
Totally.
And of course, used iconically in Wayne's World, which, my hometown gets a little shout out there, Algonquin for the good land. It's not technically correct. It was probably Milwaukee does mean the good land, but it was probably not Algonquin, for whatever that's.
Oh, okay.
And Alice Cooper, I think, would give maybe the Misfits a run for their money when it comes to being like the ultimate Halloween artist. He's got all kinds of songs that fit on a Halloween playlist. "Prince of Darkness," "Welcome to My Nightmare." There's that the theme song from, what is that, Friday the 13th Part 6? "He's Back," "The Man Behind the Mask."
There you go. Yep, you are correct.
These are all great picks for a playlist, but I'm going to pick the easy one, "Feed My Frankenstein," even though, of course, it's not actually about, Mary Shelley's novel.
Yeah.
There's a little innuendo to this song.
Have you seen him live? I mean, his theatrics, of course, he beats the Misfits tenfold, because his theatrics alone forget it.
I love showmanship.
You know?
Yes.
Love it.
Yes.
Love it on
So-
stage.
He's amazing.
I do too, and I have seen him. I've seen him like 5 times because I've seen. You can laugh if you want. I've seen Motley Crue 3 times, and he opened for them
Mhm.
each time.
Mhm.
Motley Crue on their fake final tour that I fell for because I'm a sap.
No, I'm not laughing with you. I'm totally with you. I actually produced the show they did in Austin. I was the event
Oh.
manager at the arena they played.
Okay,
Yeah.
I take back anything bad I say about.
I love Motley Crue. That
Yeah,
was
I do too.
I love Poison. No, all good. Yeah, I fell for it too. I thought it was their last one. I thought it was very special. And then they were here like last week. So
Yes, absolutely. Well, the one of the best parts of that tour was Alice was the opener, and as part of his set list, Myers, you point out, oh, well, both of you pointed out, the showmanship. My goodness, and specifically during that song, "Feed My Frankenstein," he's got that oversized puppet,
Mhm.
that's like 9 feet tall, and then it's got the voice box that kind of sings to it. Oh, it's just the best part of the show. So it's been a long time since I've seen Alice in concert, but I want to at least one more time because that's a really great show.
Absolutely.
I'll just suggest to folks who might be listening to check out his 70s concerts on YouTube, because they're even more morbid in the greatest way. Like they're even more over the top and they're really fun to watch, I think, this time of year too.
Yeah. I remember one time I saw him, he did the guillotine trick where they, cut off his head and held it.
Yes. I actually owned an action figure doll of Alice Cooper back in the day.
Okay.
And it came complete with the guillotine and an extra head.
Ah,
So cool.
Yeah. I don't know where it is now, but I still remember it.
So cool.
Yeah, I mean, but Alice, man, he's amazing. I mean, currently, like with Nita Strauss, that guitarist, she's badass. Anyway, so yeah, she was just an addition to the band. So she goes on tour with them quite a lot. She was touring with them that night of the fake
okay.
Motley Crue show.
I was gonna say, didn't she just leave him to join Demi Lovato?
She did.
Oh.
She did, which is kind
Now,
of weird.
is that actually a big deal? Do you think she'll come back to his band? Because that, Ultimate Classic Rock and Blabbermouth like to throw hissy fits about all kinds of crap.
Of
And
course.
I thought that was probably like clickbait.
Yeah, it's total clickbait. I mean, Nita Strauss does her own stuff. I mean, even with Alice, she has her own albums. And quite frankly, she's a badass on her own. She don't need nobody. So it's like, but Alice, man, to this day, but definitely want to check out the 70s stuff for sure, because that is just like off the wall. And yeah.
Awesome. Well, I think Alice Cooper gets a strong 6 thumbs up from all of us
Oh,
here,
yeah.
Heck
which
yeah.
is great. So let's move on to Myers, your number 3 pick.
So my number 3 is a little unconventional, but I think really fits the vibe. It's Season of the Witch by Donovan. And I just personally love this song. And I also feel that it shows up in almost every like movie and TV show that wants to depict a weird moment or sense memory from like the 60s or 70s. They always like bust out with this song, which I think is really funny. And then if folks know Donovan, it's usually for like Mellow Yellow or Hurdy Gurdy Man. You like hear him around for that. He's this Scottish guy. But yeah, it's such a weird evocative song. I found a review of it from AllMusic, and the critic said a few songs so perfectly reflect the dawn of the psychedelic pop era as aptly of this song. And I was like, yeah, that's what it is. It's this little snapshot, but it's spooky and it feels fall-like. It feels like autumn.
Certainly. Yeah. My notes on this is I was going to call it psychedelic folk. Both would be, I guess, applicable. And I think this is something that like Donovan threads the needle better than pretty much anybody I can think of. he wasn't as psychedelic as like the Jefferson Airplane. Maybe he wasn't as folk as like Bob Dylan, but he did the mash of those two better than anybody. You know,
I totally agree.
I think Donovan's a great underrated artist from the 60s. And you know what? Another thing I like about the Season of the Witch song is that's a particularly good vocal performance from Donovan. Like that's another one where it builds and builds, and by the end of it, he sounds pretty deranged.
Yeah, he's got this like spooky inherent quality, and then he also just has, I think, a really great range just vocally. He's able to do a lot. So yeah, every time I hear him, I'm just like kind of struck by I don't know, I guess his multi-talentedness, but I've always enjoyed him. And yeah, for Halloween, it's hard for me not to think of this song.
Moving on to our number 2 picks. Pena, what do you have in your number 2 spot?
So I'm going to go with A Nightmare on My Street from DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince. It is that album. This song comes off of their second studio album. He's the DJ, I'm the rapper. And the reason why I chose this song is because A Nightmare on Elm Street is my favorite horror series. Absolutely love me some Freddy Krueger. Fight me, tell me why Freddy Krueger is not number 1. I got a million reasons why he's a number 1. So when this song came out in '88, I heard it I heard it on the radio, and I was so tripped out and so excited because there's a part of the song where Freddy, it's not Robert Englund, but it is Freddy, a voiceover Freddy, saying, torturing Fresh Prince and saying, I got the body, you got the brains. And that is from part 2, A Nightmare on Elm Street part 2. And I was like, holy shit, this is amazing. I love it, because I'd always watch horror with my cousins on HBO and, or maybe go to theater or whatnot. But it was never, ever in the mainstream. And at this time in '88, Fresh Prince was, coming out making the big splash. And so it was super cool. And it was also awesome to hear the song from a rapper, because it just kind of made my imagination calm down and just be like, okay, because horror movies do scare me. I mean, come on. I was all of 7 when this song came out. And so I'm like, oh, it's freaky. But it was just, I don't know. It kind of made me just enjoy the genre more. And fun fact about this particular song is that when it came out, it was going to be used on A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4, The Dream Master, but the producers just decided to cut it out. And, just about the Nightmare on Elm Street series in general, like the third one, Dream Warriors, the theme song comes from Talkin. And so A Nightmare on Elm Street is always about amazing soundtracks. And I so wish this was on, part 4, because I can go on a different tangent about Nightmare on Elm Street soundtracks. However, so that's why I had to, because it's fun. And, it's before we knew that Fresh Prince had an anger problem and would slap people on stage. It's all that. It's all before we knew about the real Fresh Prince. So for those folks that haven't checked it out, I highly recommend checking out that jam.
Very good. Yeah, it's a good point. I gotta say, you said you were a metalhead. I am stunned that this one goes above Dream Warriors.
Yeah, because that was not scary.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So growing up, it was
the song.
Yeah. So definitely metalhead. But and be honest with you, Joe, these songs of mine aren't really ranked because I love them all. I can keep going. Let's do a 20. Let's talk about it. Let's just keep going. So it's hard for me to rank stuff. I just love them all.
Absolutely, and it is a great song. Yeah, I did do a little reading on that, and I was surprised to see that, it wasn't part of the Elm Street soundtracks, because they have to make such a big point in the music video, like not associated with Nightmare on Elm Street and all that legal crap. And, I thought it was a great tribute, in the same way that Monster Mash is like a tribute to the great horror movies of the, 30s and 40s. This is a great tribute to one of the great horror series of the 80s.
Yeah.
And I think I'm with you. I think Freddy's probably my favorite of the 80s slasher villains, although part 6 is pretty bad.
It is. They're not all great, but yeah,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, it just gets ridiculous.
My number 2 pick is from AC/DC. It's Hell Ain't a Bad Place to Be, which is from their early era with Bon Scott. I think of all the AC/DC songs that have hell somewhere in the title. The obvious picks would be Hell's Bells or Highway to Hell. And I love those songs a lot. I think there's just maybe a bit of an overplay factor with both of them, especially Hell's Bells, because I honestly think of like sports when I hear that now, which is really bad. That song, it really has nothing to do with sports, but it just gets played so much that way. Hell Ain't a Bad Place to Be is a really fun deep cut from the era that I like, and sort of in the same way that Devil Inside is, where it's just like it's sort of danceable, and it's also like a good beat if you just want to have a Halloween party where you're talking with your friends and you want something kind of cool on in the background. The title is kind of spooky, but the lyrics are just about a relationship that's going off the rails, you know, which is like real life scary, but maybe not Halloween appropriate. I get a kick out of that song. I just want to, I got to celebrate Bon Scott, because in the same way that I think, you know, Alice Cooper and maybe the Misfits are, Bon Scott is like the embodiment of that devilish rogue rock and roll figure of the 70s. I had an author on this show who wrote a pretty definitive biography about Bon Scott, and you know, we had a lot of fun talking about what we thought Bon might have done in the 80s or in the 90s had he not tragically passed away so young. And you know, it's whenever I think of Bon, I just think that it's just such a shame that there's only a small discography with his era. That said, I've seen AC/DC in concert a couple of times, and even though this was never a radio single, they've played it every time I've seen them, and it gets a really good reaction. And you know, the current singer Brian Johnson does a really good job with it. Is AC/DC a band that does much for either of you?
I like them a lot, but I've never gotten to see them live. And yeah, to your point, I was just thinking, it's like, yeah, Brian was able to take a baton, pass it on, but they really had their distinct, I think, strengths.
Yes, certainly. Very good, very good. Also, those are pricey tickets.
Oh,
That's what I'd seen. I was like, oh God.
Myers, what do you got at your number 2 spot?
So my number 2 spot, I Was a Teenage Werewolf by the Cramps. And kind of harkening back to the theme of a little bit of horror parody, which they were very good at. And this is actually taken from a horror film from the 50s of the same name that happened to star Michael Landon from Little House on the Prairie. Irony, hilarity. But it's pretty great. I think the Cramps, you know, they're fun and they know their influences. Lex Interior, even vocally, takes a lot from early rockabilly. I always liken his voice a little bit to Gene Vincent, early Gene Vincent, that kind of thing. And I think he shows it on this track, especially. But yeah, would love to see them. Have never gotten the chance, and I like the Cramps a lot. And I feel like this is perfect for this list.
Yeah. Do they tour often?
I think they tour a little bit, but I don't think it's on the scale of a lot of these bands that are doing it every year, to my knowledge anyway.
Because I would just have to wonder, I haven't seen him either, but I would have to wonder about if the guy can still howl at the same degree that he is on this track. Like the second half of this song, it's sort of buried in the mix, but like if you're listening, like, I mean, it's almost like a metal track. He's going so hard. Yeah,
it's just so good. It's just so good. And I hope that, I don't know, any kind of party that you guys are at for Halloween, that they play something like this, because I mean, my God, This should be at every single like Halloween gathering, or even a haunted
yeah.
house. Honestly, it should be in the background of a haunted house.
There you go.
Yeah, I think any Halloween party should have some sort of heavy aspect to it, you know. So I'm glad
yeah.
bands like Misfits and the Cramps are getting their props in this, because you know I think what we're achieving here by our lists is Halloween music is not specific to one genre. You know, we've got folk, we've got metal, we've got we got hip hop. We've got no country just yet, but I'm sure if we stretched, we could get there. You know,
Oh yeah, we could. You know, we
Yeah.
can.
there's you know that's the great thing about like putting together a Halloween playlist as opposed to like a Christmas playlist, right? You know, you could go anywhere with it. So I'm glad we're covering a lot of bases today. Here we are, the moment we all have been waiting for, our number one picks. Pena, what do you got for us?
All right, drum roll, please, guys. All right, my number one is Mind Playing Tricks on Me by the notorious Houston, Texas rap group, the Ghetto Boys. This song, just when you put it on, before the lyrics start, just hearing the music, so ominous, so creepy, and it is known as a paranoia anthem, obviously, Mind's Playing Tricks on You. This gem came out in 1991, and it's on the album We Can't Be Stopped. And this is definitely one of my favorites because they talk about Halloween. You know, Bushwick Bill, there's a line. This year, Halloween came on a weekend. Me and Ghetto Boys were trick-or-treating, robbing little kids for bags. I can keep going, but nobody wants me to. However, so this is, it's the jam. It's a Halloween jam because it talks about Halloween. Obviously, it's talking about paranoia. So it just makes it even more creepy. Scarface, when he comes and has, you know, his talk, he's talking about murdering people and how he's remembering this, talking about his gangster life. And so this song actually inspired other rap artists who happen to live that type of lifestyle to rhyme about it and relieve mental stress and all the bullshit that comes with it. So yeah, this is definitely my number one. Ghetto Boys, they actually have more horror songs. So just so you know, same album, 1991, there is a song called Chucky, and it starts with Chucky. Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play? That's how the song starts. And they're just the group. They love horror. I mean, if you never heard them before, go for it. Scarface has a wonderful solo career as well. And yeah, this is just, it's a creepy ass song, man. So if you haven't heard it, y'all need to listen to it like right after this, like right after it. It's so good.
I listened to that while I was, you know, getting ready for this episode. I got to say, I enjoyed it quite a bit. And I had the funny thought that it sort of felt like an R-rated, updated version of Somebody's Watching Me. Like there was a lot of
I could see
a
that.
lot of crossover with the themes there because it's all about, you know, just being paranoid and you know, looking over your shoulder.
Yeah,
So like those two kind of pair together in a bizarre kind of way.
absolutely. And growing up, I'd listen to them all the time. Yeah, both. You know, it's like, yeah, it's part of the theme. It was one of this song has been on one of my earliest Halloween playlists, you know, as a child. But this is just like the best. Yeah, it's something about just, it's the music, man. Y'all got to just listen to that music. You will, once you hear it like that, the music does not leave your memory. Like you just know, like that's the jam. Like it is so distinct.
I'm not a big rap expert, so I got to ask, is that a group that's still around?
No. So
Oh,
Bush
okay.
Bill actually passed a couple of years ago. But even before that, they went solo. Scarface did his own solo thing, and
Yeah.
Bush Bill did his own. And yeah, but they were together probably until the mid '90s.
Oh, okay. Couple of records at least then.
Oh yeah, at least 5.
Oh, nice. Okay. Very good. Very good. Okay. So my number one pick, drum roll, is Psycho Killer by Talking Heads.
Good one.
Psycho Killer, the first ever Talking Heads song that was written by David and Chris before they had even formed the band. I read somewhere that David Byrne wanted to write an Alice Cooper lyric to a Randy Newman sound. I think he said something like that. And you kind of have to take it like that's a weird combo, but if you kind of bend your ear, you can kind of hear what he's saying with Psycho
He did
Killer.
it. He did.
Wait, who's Randy Newman? I apologize.
He's a songwriter. Now he does kind of like soundtracks, but he had his own solo career in the 70s. He wrote I Love LA and Short People.
Okay,
Like it's
gotcha.
You Got a Friend in Me, right?
Yeah.
From Toy Story?
That's it. Okay.
That's the big
Boom.
one, yeah. Yeah, so that explanation is sort of a trip. I of course love the song because it also opens their concert film directed by Jonathan Demme, Stop Making Sense. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like that's at least my favorite concert film ever.
So good.
Yeah. Have you seen it in a movie theater ever?
Never gotten the chance to. Nope, only seen it on TV.
I'm spoiled. Here in Milwaukee, we have the Milwaukee Film Festival, and every year, without fail, they include Stop Making Sense as part of the festival. So one of the years I got down there and I got to see it on the big screen, and it's such a great concert all the way through. And I think it brings out the very best of the Talking Heads. A lot of people tell you that's their best song.
Mhm.
And I think that would be my first pick for putting together a Halloween playlist. So yeah, Talking Heads for me. And I would love to say I've seen them in concert, but I haven't because one of them doesn't like the rest of them very much, apparently.
That's what I hear.
So we're getting down to our number one pick. Myers, the pressure is on. You got to have something good for us. I know you're going to deliver. What is your number one pick for a Halloween playlist?
Yeah, I went with an unorthodox choice a little bit, but I had to do it. I picked Anything Can Happen on Halloween by the inimitable Tim Curry, who I love so much. Tim Curry is my all-time favorite actor. I might argue that Tim himself is Halloween. Folks, of course, know him from Rocky Horror and the original Pennywise in the original It. But this is from the movie The Worst Witch, 1986. And he plays the Grand Wizard at a witch boarding school. I encourage every listener to go watch this on YouTube because it's hilarious and perfect and awesome. He does kind of a literal interpretation of the lyrics. It's fantastic. The movie itself also features Fairuza Balk, who went on to the spooky movie, The Craft, later on. So there's all this connection here. But yeah, I went through different ones. I was like, do I go with the rock choice? Like, what do I do? And I was like, no, I have to say it's Anything Can Happen on Halloween by Tim Curry. I'm not even going to do like a karaoke version of it. I'm just going to tell the folks to go listen to it. It's incredible.
I had never seen this video before. My jaw dropped. This is one of the funniest things I'd ever seen.
I love him so
And
much.
yeah, Tim Curry is one of my favorite guys too. And this is now my new favorite thing of one of my favorite guys. I don't know that I don't. The video looked like the movie never actually made it to DVD, but I guess I could be wrong. But I would definitely check it out for that performance. And I like that you picked this because I sort of feel like this might be one that not everybody knows, but one that everyone does know and love is Magic Dance from Labyrinth by David Bowie. Anyone who likes that song is going to love this.
Absolutely. And I could talk about Bowie all day too. But like if you're into camp,
absolutely.
and you're into the 80s and you're into the weird earnestness, like Camp on Screen in the 80s, then I feel like this is for that person.
Absolutely. Such a strong note to close our list on. Yeah. Thank you both for your picks. This has been awesome, and I think we've given our listeners so many great starting points, not just for a good Halloween playlist, but just for expanding their libraries with all these great artists we've touched on today. So thank you very much both for that. Before we get out of here, what can either of you tell us about what's coming up on your show?
The Doors. Got an episode of The Doors coming up soon. That will be next week, actually. And Penny, do you want to talk about episode after that?
Yeah, and then after that, we are going to do an episode on Joy Division, which is Love Will Tear Us Apart. So back to our little goth roots.
Yeah,
Dark,
beautiful
but real.
song.
It is, absolutely.
Very good, very good. Okay, and then where can listeners find you guys on social media?
So they can find us, they can connect with all of our platforms at stephaniestalktunes.com, but specifically on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, we are Stephanie's Talk Tunes. And then on Twitter, we are just Stephanie's Talk because they shortened us. They said, get all the characters. And people can email us if they'd like to at stephaniestalktunes@gmail.com.
Well, happy Halloween to you both. Thank
Thank
you
you.
again for coming on. Thank you for your picks.
Thank you. So
And,
appreciate this. This has
I'm
been
sorry
great.
I had all these issues, so apologies.
Oh, no, not at all. You know, what I like about your show is that you deep dive on individual tracks and, you know, sort of, you know, really focusing on the songs themselves. And I thought that would be, you know, a fun theme to explore here on this show. And I think we did a good job.
That's
So
great.
it was a real treat meeting you both.
Likewise.
And,
You too.
you
This
know,
is great.
best of luck to the future. And hopefully we'll talk again soon.
Yes, let's make
I
that
hope
happen.
so.
Thanks, Joe. Night,
All right.
Steph.
Thank you.
And that was my conversation with Stephanie Pena and Stephanie Myers from the Stephanie and Stephanie Talk Tunes podcast. I need to thank both of these ladies for being such fantastic guests. This was a really fun podcast to put together. So many great songs, a couple of which I hadn't heard before. And it's just the sort of thing that puts me in the Halloween spirit. I hope that does the same for you. And as I said before, if there's some classic Halloween tracks that we missed, tell us about them. Post it in the comments below. What are your favorite Halloween songs? I want to know. Otherwise, be sure to check out Stephanie and Stephanie Talk Tunes. They post new episodes every 2 weeks. You can find them on any podcast platform. You can find them on social media at Stephanie's Talk Tunes on Instagram, Facebook, and even TikTok. And then there's at Stephanie's Talk on Twitter. So with that, I just want to say I hope you enjoyed our Halloween playlist picks. Otherwise, thank you for listening, and keep rocking.
And happy Halloween.
Hey, thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please remember the big 4 things you can do to support this show that don't cost a dime. Number 1, listen to the show. If you're hearing this now, that means you did this part already. Thank you. There is an infinite amount of content out there, so you choosing to spend some time listening to this show means a great deal to me. Number 2, if you like what we did here, please recommend this show to family, friends, or anyone you know who's looking for a podcast, particularly about music. Share our links in Facebook groups, subreddits, and recommendation threads. Whatever you can do is highly appreciated on my end. Number 3, find us on social media. Follow us on Twitter at PlayThatPodcast. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/playthatpodcast, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/c/playthatrock'n'roll. Lots of great material like photos and vlogs on all 3 platforms, as Play That Rock and Roll is very much meant to be a content hub as well as a podcast. And finally, the big ask. Number 4. please give us a 5-star rating and a positive review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. I know this part is a hassle, but it really does help the show a great deal. Not just because it affects the algorithm, but also because it gives me something I can point to when pitching this show to potential guests. The more social media followers and positive ratings the show has, the better chance I have for booking high-profile guests for interviews. So if you take a moment to give us even just a 5-star rating, you are actively giving us a tool to do bigger and better things here. But whatever the case, I appreciate any and all efforts you take to support us here at Play That Rock and Roll. Be sure to join us next time for more great stories and music from the world of classic rock.